very pleased to welcome you here in this session of ethics. My name is Taive. I'm from the Center for Ethics at the University of Aarnio. We have a very ethical room here. We see everyone who's late. And I very much enjoyed yesterday when Lea started already talk about the part of ethics in this topic. And we will hear more today. And this morning session is very international. We have 4 different approaches from 4 different countries. Later afternoon there will be more Baltic related part. And I will not talk more. I will let the speakers talk. We have 15 plus 5, so 15 minutes per talk, 5 minutes per questions. We try to keep up the time. And I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Robbie Nicol, who is head of the Discipline for Education, Teaching and Leadership, and senior lecturer in outdoor education. Read. We see everyone here.
Good morning, everybody. When the call for abstracts came out by the paper, I was intrigued by this question, what's love got to do with it? And I spent a long time thinking about it and couldn't come up with an answer other than it's absolutely everything to do with it. And so I was very excited about trying to sort of write a presentation around that theme. So this is the presentation. To provide a little bit of context, I work with university students, anything from 22 to, people starting second career. So adults, essentially. And a lot of them are coming in the program because we market it in such a way that they think it's sort of sexy, it's lots of outdoor activities, lots of very adventurous activities, and it is. But there's a little bit of ontological disruption goes on. We want to sort of like work them in different ways, not just the adventurous ways, but in ways that actually begin to encourage people to think deeply about the experience of the places that they're actually in. So what I'm going to share with you just now is is one particular activity that I've tried to develop that tries to deepen people's experience. And I'd like to start off with sharing some of the students' work with you. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about the theoretical ideas that inform my thinking when I think about the activities that I want to do with the students. And then I'd be very happy to discuss questions with you. This is some of my students' work. Dear Oak, I don't know what to do. I feel so lost. I want to make a difference. I want to make a better world. I want to be able to protect, like you, your stoic energy, your passion for life, your care for others, your selflessness. These are all qualities that make the world better. You make the world better, and without the desire for anything in return. What beauty you bring to the world. I so wish you could whisper to me exactly what path to take in order to become like you. I feel the same now as I did when my grandmother passed, desperate to hear a voice of reason, understanding, compassion. A voice I came to love with all my heart, and which was so quickly whisked away before I had the chance to capture the sound. And yet I've never heard your voice. I've never heard your thoughts, feelings, fears, and I wish so desperately to do so. Maybe that is where my passion for learning from others comes from, the desperate desire to hear from you, Oak, and your friends, your family, and those you care so much about and spend your life protecting. Please come in. If only you could show me the way and tell me what I should do. Whisper to me how I can be more like you. I'm sorry I've been so selfish, only talking with my woes and my fears. Maybe you would have wished to express your thoughts over the years, but no one was willing to listen, and so silence was your only option. I promised to listen, though, no matter how long it would take. I promised to be the one to care and to listen to you. some of the theoretical, I'm not going to talk about what Maurice Merleau-Ponty talks about. You can very well read about it yourself if you wish. But what I was struck by his idea that when we're in places, there is something about an inalienable presence. That's the key. There's something about being present in a place. I get from Maurice Merleau-Ponty's work that I'd like to sort of talk about. I like Simon James's work, an environmental philosopher, and he talks about natural environments having a distinct value. There's something about that being, there's a value that is direct and compelling that arises from being in places, rather being in places that are direct and compelling. And within those, you may develop a virtue of attention. And then I've written some stuff, because in my work, because they are not essentially about outdoor, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, as far as I know, was not an outdoor educator, but I'm trying to use his work to locate his theories in my thinking, in my work. And so I've written a little bit about the importance of being in places like I'm just about to describe for ending up with something like what I just read out to you. And then of course, Aldo Leopold had that classic statement that you can see there. So these are the sorts of theories that I use to inform my thinking when I'm trying to work with my students, which I share with them. So but the question remains, how do we get people to pay attention? If this theoretical stuff is correct, that we can develop virtues of attention by the places we are actually in, how do we actually do that? Well, here's what I tried to do. And again, if you're interested in this, you'll need to read a little bit more. I've gone to this person, Barbara Turner Vestilago, who is a creative writer. And what I'd like to share with you is how I set up this particular activity to end up with what the student wrote. Barbara Turner, she has a very distinct way of trying to get people to go about creative writing. And she does it like this. She says, and I share with the students before they go out into the outdoors, I share indoors this stuff. I ask them to, as Barbara asked them to do, is to write what comes to you. Not to challenge anything. What she's trying to do really hard is, you know that editorial voice. When you go writing and you write a sentence, the next thing you think, I've got to go back to that sentence and start it again. It's not quite correct. Do you recognise that yourself? And then what happens? You end up, some people not being able to write because there's a blockage there. She's trying to remove the blockages from people's thinking so that they can write from the heart. So that they don't have to, the brain gets in the way. The brain's there working already, but she's trying very hard to get people to operate simply from the heart and to get that stuff coming out. And that's why she says, give all the sensuous detail of whatever it is you're experiencing. And most importantly, she says, go fearward. I don't have time to talk about what she means by that. It means taking a risk with yourself. It means if you think about sex, that's what you write about. If you think about death, that's what you write about. That's it. Whatever comes into your mind, you write about it. Okay. What I'd like to do now is share with you as much as I can a little bit about this place that I work with students. Being an outdoor educator, I'm not very good at these things, so I may just be a second try to find the cursor. Escape, thank you. There it is. Yeah, it's coming. This is where we go. This is the oak tree that I take them to. We sit around the oak tree, and I've already prepped with Barbara's guidelines, and I invite them to take the guidelines on carefully, clearly, and we sit down and I just say, right. Okay, I'd like to share something else with you, another student's work. Dear Oak, you are so unique among the rest, so brilliant among the dull. You are what I desire to be. Look here as everyone writes for you. I'm resting on your fellow kind for support, but look to you for creativity. You give space to so much life, habitat for wildlife, a surface for plants. Though you may look dead on the outside, your soul is still alive and well in this forest and within all of us. I have no idea how to become you. I have no direction and choose this course based on its exotic change to a monotone and routine lifestyle. I find myself missing home and the people that I know well. Our group surrounds you today in hopes of finding something out about ourselves. But I don't think I can find myself when others are near me. Your branches reach out as though to point us in the right direction. Almost metaphorically, your branches spread out in all-encompassing circle. Almost to state that it does not matter which path you choose, but the opportunities that you will be given on those paths that will show you the way. There is no current path. There is no correct path. The point of it all is a long, fruitful, supportive and giving life that affects you and those around you to become the oak, magnificent oak amongst a forest of dull, bland pines. I'm sitting here with 20 others, wondering if this is the true point of the exercise, not to write to the oak, but to write to ourselves, affirm the decisions we have made as true and right, and be able to march on our quest to find beauty and happiness in life. I don't think I will forget this place, this moment, these people. After all, it's about the experiences that make us wise and thirsty for life. I hope I've made the right decision, and hope that when I lose my way and sense of direction, you'll remind me what is right. I'd like to finish with one more of these students' pieces of work, and then finish off with a little bit of theoretical stuff. Third student writes, Dear Oak, there you are, and here am I. I am. Are you the most impressive because of your enormity? What about the spider's threads, fragile and shimmering? Fairies' forests, so mystical in this fog and light. Now you are behind me, and I'm here to write. Something that brings me fear, something that attracts or repels me. You don't have my answers, and you can't change what questions my mind turns over and over. But maybe you can give me a place of peace and a sense of time or timelessness to bring them to paper. Maybe in time, with time, you can bring me different thoughts. But for now, I have a certain sense of urgency for the task in hand. And there are already ideas, things from my heart and my mind that I want to further explore. I feel draw from you, or society, or this community I am with. Use me, read me, create from my being. So maybe you can tell me, maybe I can find in you the inspiration or some of it, and how to express my love. I want to be here with me always. I want you to be here with me always. I want to climb, to lie under and see together upwards. Feel the soft, damp moss. Hear nothing but your voice and your breath. I only want to smell what you are. No pine trees or morning rain or beautiful woodland scents. They can be for everyone else or for me. Cold, clear water, the midnight loon, the hazy, drunken, dancing and laughing, the sweat, the skin, the energy. I want to link my fingers through yours and through the roots of this tree and feel an eternal pulse of the energy we share. Sorry, same problem. Hello, lift. Okay, so it doesn't matter about the... Okay, so some people might hear say, okay, that's great, but that's just the green environment. That's the expression of just the green environment. And it is, yeah. But people are trying to make like... But I follow this up with work that says, so what? Okay, so you have these experiences and you can make of them what you will, the way they express themselves. They tell me they're deep and meaningful for them, and I believe them. And then I say, well, so what? And I use a position of epistemological diversity, Peter Reason's work, for people who might have known Peter Reason. And Peter looks at this idea of epistemological diversity in different ways, like there's different types of knowledge, experiential, which we've been sort of looking, presentation, I suppose I've been sharing something with that, taking experience and presenting it or the student's work. Propositional, The idea that all those things on their own are not enough. We cannot understand climate change by speaking to an oak tree, not in its entirety. We need to have understanding of propositional knowledge. And then, okay, what are you going to do about it? Action. So it's an action research type model. Like, it's not enough just knowing and feeling, you need to do something about it. So we explore all these different sort of epistemological diversity. But first of all, my feeling is, I don't teach sustainability. I can't teach sustainability. What I'm trying to do is get people to ask deep questions, and not just ask the questions, but do something about it. Now, and I've done some research on this as well, which was probably in the presentation, but I can't find it. So there, you wouldn't want to read my work, and it's not that interesting. What is interesting is the student stuff, and that's my point. It's not about me, the teacher, it's about them and their making meaning of experience, and having done that, what are you going to do about it? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. So we have a few minutes for the questions, and here.
I would have a general question. You probably have many letters to the oak in the meantime.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, now the work is starting. That means you should do some qualitative analysis, extract categorization, and come to general messages.
Yeah.
You did not do it yet?
No, we all have busy lives, eh? And it's on my agenda of things to do. But I really want to do it, yes. I think it'd be worthwhile. I have attempted to do it, and I've written about it. It's actually quite hard to do this, as you know. It's quite hard. I can make my meaning out of it. Sorry, I'm going to waffle. I'm doing this work, yes. I'm going to try and do it better.
Thank you. One more question, maybe? No? I have. Oh, okay.
Robbie, do you, when you're taking in these responses, the Dear Oak letters, do you assess them? Do you grade them? What do you do with them?
See, that's the problem. That's what I was going to start waffling about.
Good.
So So I work for an institution which demands that these students have to be marked and assessed and graded, right? So what I'm trying to do is say to them, okay, you've got to do that. You're here for a master's degree, you want it, you've got to do that. I want to engage with you in another process. I don't want to measure what you're talking about. But we use that as a way of like, this is the real world, but it's also a parallel universe. You know, if you want your degree, this is what you've got to do. That's not what I want. I want to share with you this deep stuff, because the real measure is what you're going to do about it.
Right.
So do you know? So I'm trying to wrestle honestly, personally with that, but let them see that that's the fight, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And it's a methodological challenge, it's a political challenge, it's an every sort of challenge. It's an educational challenge.
Thank you.
You have a question over there.
Yeah, apart from the analysis of the text, could you give 1 or 2 sentences about how you take the students then away from this single tree experience and take them back to what you call that propositional knowledge and other things? Because what I heard many negative sayings about the tree huggers that really passionate about these trees, but well, what about how to be capable of doing some things and knowing where to do something that also might help this tree, but also helps other trees, other oaks as well, to put it bluntly.
Yes, I actually deal with this tree hugger thing quite, and the words and the names and labelled and all that sort of thing. What I can tell you is quite involuntary, not quite involuntary. As a direct result of this, they invited me when we go back to Edinburgh. They'd all set themselves up as a little group, and they all had given themselves tree names. And they went around Edinburgh, the city where I work, planting seeds, tree seeds, in places that they're not supposed to do it. And they had a sort of semi-secret society with all the code names, and it was all a bit of fun. And they had a name for it, like the urban garden or something like that thing. And off they went and planted it. And I thought, to my mind, I was proud as punch that this type of stuff happened, and they took some action for it. I'm not sure if it directly answers the question.
But let's see.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
give it a big applause. Thank you. And we are also moving more to the roots of the education. As I've understood that you are more working with primary and secondary level. Yes. Okay. So we hear from Finland, from Essi, Aarnio-Linnanvuori.
I'm from the University of Helsinki. I'm a PhD student. I'm writing dissertation at the moment. And normally I work at the WW of Finland as an environmental educator, so I also have a contact to the real world in schools. I'm talking about my PhD today. I have always been quite interested in how environmental education at school is supposed to be transdisciplinary, and how it's supposed to be integrated in all of the school subjects. I have always also been interested in how the social issues and ethical issues are integrated in environmental education. So when I decided to do a PhD, this was something natural to be looked at. I decided to look at 4 school subjects especially, and these are Lutheran religion, secular ethics, social studies, and history. The 2 first ones, because you probably not everybody here understands the Finnish school system, they are, so you can study one or the other. So either you study religious education or then you study secular ethics if you don't belong to any church. And I'm writing articles, 2 of them are textbook articles and the other 2 are about teacher interviews. First, a look at the Finnish national curriculum guidelines. These actually are under construction at the moment. Just in December we got the new guidelines for basic education. Basic education in Finland means kids from 7 to 15. And just last week we got the first draft for general secondary education. So in 2016 we will have new guidelines, but we're still operating with old ones. Anyway, we have a cross-curricular theme in both primary and secondary level. So this means that environmental issues are supposed to be integrated into all or almost all school subjects. Perspectives in these subjects that I am looking at that are natural to them are, for example, here, environmental ethics is present in religious education and ethics. Also, human relationship with nature is discussed in those school subjects, but more from the perspective of religions when the subject is religious education and more of the general Western types of in the secular ethics. History has not had a very strong tradition of environmental education in Finland, but there is a human dependence on nature content included in the secondary education, and there will be more of this in the future. So in the new guidelines, it's stronger than before. In social studies, there is a thin green line discussing sustainable development and economic growth, but this is not very strong in the curriculum. So these are supposed to be integrated in the subjects, but when I look at the textbooks, it's very minor thing. They don't really get very much space. And what worries me, you probably recognize it from other parts of the world, but what worries me is that even though small parts where they discuss environmental issues, there are these 2 streams or trends of discourse that emerge. One is that they describe changes in the environment in a very pessimistic view. I like to call this the end of the world discourse. And then the other one is that even though these are the subjects that are discussing society and are discussing ethics, they actually discuss the ethical choices that we have and the solutions to problems very little. And when they do, they have a discourse of small acts, or maybe should I say very small acts, recycling. And that's about it. It's the only choice that they offer for students or a child that they can do for the environment. Now, textbooks only give a very limited view on what happens in the classroom, so I interviewed teachers. I wanted to talk to teachers who would really have something to say about these issues. So I selected such teachers that are already active developers of environmental education or ESD in their own subject or their own school. Some of them were rather general developers of the subjects. So I had some textbook authors and teachers who do research on their own work. And also committed to responsible environmental behavior in their own lives. Most of them fulfilled all of these three criteria, but not quite all. And now I come to the reason why I'm here in the values and ethics. John Fien, I think I saw him coming in here yesterday, gave us the ultimate question of whether we can teach ESD in a way that is both committed and ethical, professionally ethical. And this is something that obviously was disturbing these teachers. They were thinking about it, but many of them felt uncertain. Whether you can be an environmental educator actually at school. Can you really bring the environmental values in there, or whether you should not do that at all? And there were one teacher particularly, but also a couple of others who expressed something quite similar to this. Who thought that they actually have to be very neutral, so that they would not be manipulating the students. So they wanted to keep distance to value education. They were teaching facts. And these were social studies and history teachers. They also said that they don't want to reveal anything of their own values, and they don't expect that the students reveal anything from theirs. That was quite surprising for me, because most of the teachers would express that they think that they should have an open discussion. They think that they can tell about their own opinions, but they have to also remind that it is okay to disagree with the teacher. This is more of a typical type of thinking. But these teachers felt very uncertain about expressing their opinions about environmental issues. So it was okay to express opinions about some other issues. For example, there was this one teacher who said that she feels that it is her duty to tell the students that she supports gay marriage, because then she might support some gay student in the classroom. But then she said that, well, I don't think I can say my opinions about economical growth or climate change in the classroom. Then a couple of teachers who had a very long and who had put very much energy in learning environmental education and learning environmental issues say that they openly want to encourage empathy towards environment. And those people were also emphasizing action, so they said that the students should also do so. And now the other interesting observation, which relates to what Arjen said this morning. These teachers consider climate change a very a difficult issue, and they feel very uncertain whether they can take a stance in the classroom, whether it really exists or not. And actually some of them say that, yes, I believe that it's true, but I think that to be fair, I have to take the climate denialist also in the classroom. And there is, I think there's a misunderstanding whether what in here is a value issue and what is I personally don't think that climate change is a matter of opinion, but it's a question of whether we trust the science or not. One of the teachers did use this for in the secondary level for the philosophy class when discussing whether we can trust the science or not. And I think that he was totally capable of doing this properly. All right. Interdisciplinary, it's obviously it's a risk for a specialist teacher, and we have to go outside their field of expertise, and the school structures don't necessarily support interdisciplinary projects or programs, so they feel that it's a lot of extra work, and they feel uncertain. And but it was not all pessimistic. I feel that maybe I get to hear all the bad things and difficult issues, but also they had some examples of how they cooperate across the disciplines, and they had cooperation between like a religion teacher and a biology teacher, which is very fruitful, and very different expertise areas which they have. Some had supportive headmasters that had helped with scheduling and helped with the problems so that they could build projects that are good education. But I think that yesterday evening Rea Raus also referred to that maybe we should redefine knowledge. And somehow I think that that is very important for interdisciplinary environmental education. You can't expect the teacher to be expert in everything. So redefining knowledge is probably one solution. Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you.
I have a question myself. As I've heard, that Finland is now going more on a subject-based studies in the school, isn't it? No, it's moving to the theme-based, from the subject-based to the theme-based. How is that connected to your studies?
Well, that's a little bit of an urban legend. we are going to have phenomenon-based entities in the curriculum, that all schools are supposed to be, all the students are supposed to get 2 times a year a project or an entity that is phenomenon-based and not subject-based. But and that's probably a very good thing for environmental education. But we're not giving up the subjects.
Okay. Our newspapers were stressing it maybe a bit different.
Yeah.
So open for floor for the questions. Yes, please.
May I ask a question? How is the cooperation between the religious teachers and natural science teachers? Does such a cooperation exist? And how?
Well, it doesn't. They usually work alone. So the teachers usually work alone. So they don't cooperate very much. But this is encouraged, and I think that it really ought to be done more.
Something else? I just wanted to stress that I personally think that it's not possible to make non-values teaching. You always stress your values, even when you say you don't. That's a value, not to stress values. So, still, one more question? No, then thank you. And now we are moving more south in the way, coming from Scotland to Finland and now to Germany. And we have Franz Bogner, who's the chair of biology education in the University of here, please.
Don't pronounce it wrongly, it's Byron, not Byron.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure whether I prepared the appropriate talk for this audience, because we also did many interventions. We had about more than a dozen educational interventions, how we sell ecology to the kids how we sell sustainable development. But I would like to talk about the other side of the front. How could you prove that what we are doing is worth doing? It means how you measure attitudes and values. And we jumped into this field 20 years ago, and we were very lucky at that time, since there was a meta-analysis of some American group killing almost all approaches to measure attitudes and values, except one, and the one was just for us. It was the NEP, your environmental partner. And therefore it was a very good start for us, that we should not repeat the mistake of the others of doing own mistakes. This group, I think all of them are retired in the meantime, but I think they did a very good work to help the field to really come to a way to measure what we promised to measure. You German, you don't need to know German to understand this cartoon. And this is the way, very often, in field centers, attitudes and values are measured. Just putting together some items, extracting some numbers, and explaining the world. To be honest, we started with the same mistakes. But, okay, 20 years later, we are a little more wise. Because there are two major problems in the field. The first problem is the validation of the questionnaires. All of you know these minefields. You know, putting together a questionnaire is not a scale. You need psychometric procedures. That's the reason why I raised yesterday the nasty question. Sorry for this, John. Often the failure of theoretical backups. And what is even worse, this is a quote from the personality psychologist, there are as many scales around as there are researchers in the field. Everybody is producing their own measure, and of course you can do it, but then you cannot compare. And all the outcomes are vulnerable. So, now I made you curious, very likely, how it might happen. When you produce questionnaires, which means you put together items, 10, 20, 30, 40, the pressure in the field centers is to have as less items as possible. And then you have the problem, this is you. You're producing one item, and your clients are decoding it differently. That means you have to make sure that your item is decoded as a flower, and not as an airplane, or a cat, or whatever, you know. That means you have to make sure that the kids are understanding the item as you intend to do it. I don't know how many psychologists are in the field. I am not a psychologist, but I was very lucky to meet a good psychologist when we did the work, and he prevented us to do most of the mistakes. So, I make a long story short. Here we have 20 items, and we have a very clear structure. And I promise to you, when you prepare a questionnaire with 20 items, and you do this factor analysis, you have a mess. Here, we just have one cross-loading, but to be honest, this is after 5 years refinement. When we started, we had a mess. That means we had loadings all over them. I don't go into the detail because I just show you the first breakdown. Here, for example, are some items, which all of them are from previous studies. For example, people worry too much about pollution. To be honest, these were the items extracted of a pool of about 80 items. We ended up with 20, and you could even question the 20. Or dirty industrial smoke from chimneys makes me angry. I come back to this issue in an European study which we did later on. We started in 1993. In 1999, we published this model. The model means we have 20 items. The 20 items, the sets of items are primary factors, which we defined, according to the psychology definitions, as attitudes. And the attitudes are under the umbrella of a higher order factor, which is, we have just two umbrellas. One umbrella is preference for preservation, and the other umbrella is preference for utilizing, exploiting, and so on. Of course, this was a very simple approach, and to be honest, it was just another approach of the dozens of approaches which have been there in the 90s. Just to show you some details, you could use this instrument to find to monitor, let us say, 12-year-olds. Very often you find the way that girls are more in favor of utilizing, of preserving nature, of stewardship for nature and so on, and boys are more in favor of exploiting it. But it's not always the case. Of course, we had a language problem, because we did in the 90s about 10 studies in different countries, and as soon as you translate the questionnaire, you are in big troubles. That means you should follow some rules, you know, like translating it, another one is translating it back, and if you don't come to the same translation, you have troubles. This is just to warn you a little bit. And also to warn you to start this issue, it took us 12 studies with about 15,000 students to come to our model. If I would have known this before, I wouldn't have done it. So then, okay, it was just another model to measure attitudes. But then something very strange happened. Another group challenged this model in Australia or New Zealand and confirmed it. They made it much more complex. If you look here, since nobody is a psychologist in this room, it's like when you have an umbrella. As more people are under the umbrella, as more difficult it is. As more primary factors you have, as more difficult it is to confirm your model. But here you see again, we have this bipolar structure. You have the values of preservation and the values of utilization. And we have different primary factors, different attitudes. Again, attitudes are primary factors, values are secondary factors or higher order factors. And from my knowledge, it's the first case that in our field everybody is ignoring each other. Everybody is doing a lot of work. Nobody is repeating the work of others. As it is the case in science, you know. By training, I am an ecologist. And if I find a new thing in ecology and the competing group is saying no, then it's nothing. And in our field, everybody is explaining about it. That means here we have the example that another group, it is in New Zealand, used this were psychologists. These were not amateurs that we are. I'm an ecologist. These were psychologists. And they confirmed it. And another group in America, they used it for evaluating field centers, Johnson and Monolith. And since they know there are so many scales around, the first thing what they did, they tried to confirm the scale before they used it. And you immediately see they come with some kind of other analysis, doesn't matter, but they come to the same bipolar structure. Second confirmation. And in the meantime, we have already 4 confirmations. This is a group in Africa. They applied this in the Ivory Coast, and they came to the same structure. which means we have a model to measure attitudes and values. In the meantime, we have it in, 4 times confirmed. One center is the preservation of preferences. You could call it ecocentrism, stewardship with nature, enjoyment with nature, balance with nature. It doesn't matter, you know. You could put under this umbrella whatever. And utilization, which means you prefer anthropocentrism, exploitation, and whatever. The advantage of this, that we have a model, 4 different groups confirmed it, is you can, what is my time? Okay, then I have to do it a little bit more. You can measure in a very simple way attitudes, occurring attitudes. It's like in personality. In the personality measurement, psychologists started, personality is a very complex field, and the psychologists started in the 40s to say it's 5 or 3 major factors. And they fought each other for 40 years, and they have not solved the issue. Either one group is saying 3 and the other group is saying 5. I don't care. 3 or 5 is not a lot. That means you have a complex pattern reduced to a measurable, simple pattern. So in the meantime, we have 25 languages, and if you are from a country where we don't have the version, please forward it to me. I don't know whether I still want a confirmation for this. Somebody sent it to me. For sure, this is a Vietnamese version. For sure, we know about 25, 26 languages. The good thing is, a few months ago, I got an email from the American group saying, we use your model since 10 years. We have a database of 11,000 students. Would you like to come over to prepare a paper about it? And here we have from 2000, we evaluated from 2003 to 2010. And you see, it's more or less stable, the preservation, because here it's the average. It's a Likert scale. That means 3 is the average. And the preservation scores more or less remain the same. There are some dips, but they are not statistically relevant. Now it is submitted, but we will see what the reviewers are saying. Then we used this. Now I talked about adolescents. Age group was 11 to 17, 18. Then we did a European project with pre-service teacher and in-service teacher, 20 countries, 16 languages, including partners from Northern Africa. I was not willing to take a bet whether our structure came out. I should have done this, because with 6,000 teachers, 20 different countries, 20 different traditions, 15 or 16 languages, which means 15, 16 minefields. Oops, where is it? And another analysis. It's R for the statistic guys in the audience. It's not SPSS, it's used R. You immediately see, wow, the structure is there. And it's the age group, and originally we wanted to find differences between the science teacher and the others, but there are not really big differences. But when you have adults, you can ask something that you cannot ask when you have pupils. For example, it's illegal to ask about religion or parents' income or whatever, you know. And here you can, it's just one example. Religion, we found that religion has nothing, it has no effect on preservation. Preservation is more or less the same, but it has an impact on utilization. Originally we thought the Christians, you know, the Bible, subdue the nature and blah, 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 blah. But here you see the Christians are more or less in the middle, agnostic people are less in favor of using or exploiting nature, and the Muslims, which of course has also something to do with gross income of the countries, because Northern African countries really spoiled our comparison, because it's not comparable, because the economy is not the same. So, and I make a long story short, just to show you, the story went on, and right now we have a model. But this story I told you. This is a 20 years old story measuring attitudes. Luckily, another group in Switzerland started in the 90s to measure behavior, reported behavior, which is even a bigger minefield. Because when I ask you whether you behave properly, you just lie. It means you have find ways to avoid lies. But this group also started mid of 90s, and the general ecological behavior, the only disadvantage for educators is they still need 40 items. And we have 40 items for behavior, 20 items for attitudes, and let us say 20 items for knowledge. Your kids are filling a questionnaire for 1 hour, and they are not coming to the field center to fill out questionnaires. That means you have to find other ways to do this. Another thing, what I also want to be an ambassador. In all universities, citation index are important. And in our field, as I told you already, everybody is ignoring each other. Here, for example, these are the citation index. The paper of 1998, it's cited 300 times. Some 4 papers are cited more than 100 times. That means 100 other researchers took it to integrate it into their knowledge, into their studies. That means welcome in science. This is how science is working. If a genetic guy is finding a new gene and the others are ignoring it, it's not a new gene. And here it's more or less the same. I think I stop here because I would have another presentation to show how you use this for evaluating a week-long field center course, for example. What is the outcome out of that? But thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? Everybody are astonished.
I have one question about the methodology developments on this model that you proposed. Have you applied it also on that kind of on the same people a little bit later on these same students a little bit later in their life stages? Have you tested it maybe?
You mean a longitudinal study?
Like a longitudinal.
Yes and no. In this national park study, which would be the second presentation, we had about 400 students evaluated. Normally we evaluate them 3 times. Before, immediately after, 6 weeks later. And in this study we had a subsample of about 80 pupils, half a year later. And more or less as expected. When you are able to change attitudes, this change remains constant to half a year later. But the cognitive stuff, what they learned in the field center, it's not there anymore in half a year. That means they forget the cognitive stuff. I expected that the cognitive stuff is also there because they learn in a very balanced, inquiry-based way. And the theory is that this lasts forever. It's not the case. But attitudes, we did many studies where we showed attitudes were not changed. We have some studies, luckily, where attitudes were changed, but we have even more studies where attitudes was not changed. Because to change attitudes is very, very difficult. And the reason why we have no longitudinal study is the stupid German bureaucracy, because we need for every study permission of the ministry. and we have stupid data protection laws. That means we just can do this within one academic year. That means if we have our intervention in October, we can catch them again in May. But if we have intervention in March, they are lost, because in the next class, officially we don't know where our students are. Maybe we have to go to another country.
Okay.
Just a minor question. You showed, I think it was the American data, that there has been no change for preservation, attitudes for preservation. Has there been any change towards utilization?
No. No, I have to say, this data were not collected to please us. They were collected for the pre-tests of field centers. And there were many field centers around, but since they used the scale, we could collect all the pre-tests and came up to 11,000. And we found that it's more or less constant, except in one case, because we have data from Louisiana, and Katerina made us 2 years lost, because we had no data of that. But it doesn't matter, it's some kind of a screenshot. And we cannot compare the intervention effect, because there were too many different interventions. The reason why they have the data is they were the pre-test data, which is always interesting for an educator to know where the clients are. Because if somebody is coming with high preservation values and you want to increase these preservation values, very likely you are lost. That means you should know this, which kids are coming to you. For example, if we have kids from cities, it's easier to intervene with because everything is novelty for them. And if you have kids from a rural area, for them it's normal. It's another issue. The thing is, coming back to my message, measuring means measuring. When you sell numbers, these numbers must be numbers. And this is very often a mistake or in our field, because people take us serious, from the psychology sector for example, if we really sell the real numbers, if we prove that our numbers are numbers. My main field is the education, and not this measurement issues. But I decided to put my focus on this measurement issue.
I also have a question. I know that there is a European values map made. I'm not quite sure whether it's every year or is it a bit further. Do you compare your data with the European values map, or do you have any connection?
No.
No, that's true. You should do that. Okay, so you can give a big applause. And we are moving to our fourth presentation, and coming back here into Estonia, we have Särg from the Estonian Literary Museum. And she's a senior researcher and has a PhD in molecular linguistics, so a bit more on the other field.
I'm educated as a folklorist and ethnomusicologist in Tartu University, and I want to talk to you about theories how to teach and how to use folklore in environmental issues, but I will tell about my own experience. In it, I was asked last year to teach how to use the experience of traditional culture for teaching sustainable development, and this course was organized by Tartu University, and was called about integrating the ideas of sustainable development into kindergarten teaching. So I had to teach the kindergarten teachers, and my task was to give them ideas how to use Estonian folklore and traditional wisdom in outdoor lessons. I had not any experience in that realm, and so my methods and my ideas I had to work out by myself, and I am very grateful to the house who gave in her plenary presentations yesterday kind of systematic overview about main points that I have intuitively used in my lectures. So I started to think about our traditional culture and folklore, and realized that in our folklore was expressed our traditional way of living. And the way of living in traditional societies always a sustainable way of living, because Estonians have lived in the same area for thousands of years, and we have got for them nature that is still usable, some values that work by today. And I also realized that I can't use not only folklore and my knowledge that I have got from that university, but also my experience that I have got from my childhood home, because my grandmother was quite a poor person, and if you grow up in a poor family, you actually have a more sustainable way of living, because you have to use all your resources better. As a child, I learned to repair everything, to save everything, to sort my garbage, because in our old country house we had any other possibility. And I was very surprised when I asked my friends from Tallinn to visit me in Saaremaa, and asked them to sort garbage. I said, the papers you have to put this box, because we will fire it in the oven, and other things go together. And they were surprised that I am crazy. Why are you sorting your garbage? It was kind of crazy idea about 20 years ago. And now I realized that everything has turned, and people are changed, and things that were ridiculized some time ago are now the mainstream. Also repairing the clothes. I have spent much of my life for repairing clothes, but the main value, the mainstream value was to have new things. When, for example, I read literature and read how is described the main person or positive person, often is said he had very new clothes, he looked like come from beauty shop and so on. But there was not our traditional values, but new values. So I tried to find the core or folklore that could help me to teach those traditional sustainable values. And I understand that the main place for that can be our folk belief, because folk belief was the base of traditional worldview that contains the main values, main laws, main rules, how to act. And also folk belief is the base of other folklore genres. They are, those main ideas are reflected in all folklore genres. So I tried at first to find those main values for myself and then explain to my students how to find them. And one of the main problems was that folk belief is not valued by contemporary so-called educated people. it has been discouraged since Christianity and Enlightenment ideas, and folk belief was often considered to be kind a way of thinking of stupid, uneducated people to explain nature phenomena. But it is very simplified point of view, because all folklore, as I know as a folklorist, uses metaphoric language. To understand folklore text, we need to understand those metaphors. And the first reason why we fail to do it is that we don't think that they exist. We think that the old primitive people had kind of simple thoughts, simple way of thinking, and they used kind of childish tales to talk each other, and we use those tales only for children because they are too simple and not important for us. But if we think about all folklore genres, they all give a truth through metaphoric language. So, for example, if we take proverb are usually metaphors. Estonian, very simple proverb. Käbi ei kuku kännust ohkele. The pine cone doesn't fall far from its trunk for its tree. Do you understand? Its simple meaning is that when I'm in the forest, the tree can't fall its cone very far from itself. Okay, that's very simple. But actually it has another meaning. It is told about people and indicates that people of the same family are very similar, but the son has the same characteristics as his father, and it may refer to the inherited character and also values that the people have in their homes. So this proverb has two meanings. The first surface meaning and the other deeper meaning. And the same is valid about folk belief. To understand folk beliefs, we also need to. Sorry, I have here some slides of my course, but I want to show you a slide about folk belief. Yes. In folk belief, the main opposition is between sacred and profane, and they are kind abstract terms. And the problem why we don't understand many things in religion is that actually our ability to sense and understand abstract terms or abstract things is quite weak. And to explain abstract values for people, folklore always uses metaphoric language. It means that in folklore, abstract ideas are represented through concrete things. And those sacred things are very difficult to understand. For example, if we take nature, that is the main object of our considerations, to understand that we can't change too much in nature, we need to give a kind of different value to the nature. And this value or this quality can be called sacred. And the sacredness is too abstract to understand so easily, and therefore I use many metaphors to express this idea. And one way of expression are nature spirits. Estonian old religion was animistic religion. That meant that nature was animated by different spirits, trees, stones, lakes, everything has its own spirits, and the task of those spirits was to protect, to guard nature and nature objects. And so when I started to interpret to teachers Estonian animistic worldview, I tried to explain that this metaphoric language to understand that nature is a living person, that we need to have a partnership relation to the nature because its relation is to living person. And in our outdoor lectures we go through the forest and visit spring, and in everything I try to make them sense that those trees and grass are living, using folk tales and folk songs that have more emotional impact to people than my theoretical ideas or courses. And we look at trees and grass. They tell that, have you ever thought that we are tramping on living beings? Grass is living, and we need trees. Our ancestors brought sacrifice to trees. They brought gifts, and it might seem very stupid to give to a tree some milk or curd or some bread, but actually it was metaphoric, symbolic way of action, because actually this tree don't need so urgently this food, but the people needed to give this gift because it made them sense that there is the partner that need be taken care and need to be treated as a living person. So all those stupid, not all, but many of the stupid habits were symbolic meaning to express the attitude to your partner. And I think our human life is full of the similar symbolic activities. For example, we take gifts to our relatives for birthday or for Christmas. People very often don't need those gifts. They have too many things at home. But it is our symbolic way to reflect, to express our relation to them. Okay. So I often use the interpretation of folklore text, and I took with me the collection of Estonian folk tales. It is translation into English, and I chose a story to exemplify a little bit the way I can interpret the folklore text. This fairy tale is quite long, but I just only say some words about it. This is the Northern European version of famous fairy tale Golden Fish. Do you know this tale? Yes. This golden fish has probably become known from Grimm's fairy tales collection, but our native version is to the favors of the sacred tree. So when we replace this mythical golden fish by a sacred tree, this tale starts to get more point for us for our environmental issues. Because the point is that old poor man goes to the sacred tree to get some firewood. It is very bad weather, he's very poor, his house is cool, and starts to chop the sacred tree, and sacred tree is addressed by him as a devil. He says, just it all, devil take it. And that all makes us think that it is quite a bad man. He goes to sacred tree and addresses to it as a devil. But if we know more about the way of living and folklore of Estonia, then we can understand that he addressed actually to the spirit of a tree as the devil, because our animistic spirits were pagan spirits, and Christianity started to reflect them as devil spirits, so they were identified by devils. So very often when Estonian says in Old Taylor song, devil or addresses to evil spirit, it means only that he addresses to traditional spirit. So in this tale very clearly a man turns to spirit of a tree. And the spirit of a tree actually is both protector of nature and himself, so the sacred tree didn't get angry but gave him firewood. And in this tale we again can discover what our main needs is. So the man asks firewood, food, a younger woman, and everything that he bought. But when he started to ask to be a king for a ward, then the secretary got angry with him, and they said, we can't ask too much, but the only things we need, and the nation answers as kind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? We heard this morning, I really like to say that we are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. Would you say that this method would more turn to the wisdom as well behind the information?
I think yes. One of my ideas was to make people more attentive, how they can think about the world and how they can interpret the world. My first slide is usually the Estonian sky. It shows how people and the environment, the universe are related to each other. People have given names to constellations, and actually Estonian farm yard or farmer's life is reflected in the sky here, very low, or everyday things like a big carriage and a small carriage. And I often have asked from my students why this carriage or wagon has only one stick to pull it. Can you answer? Usually we know that carriage has two sticks and the horse is between them. So how can you answer this question? Okay. People think that it has no meaning. It's just spy and those people think that it can be a carriage, but actually that is a point, because you know the Estonian agriculture was not used a horse but an ox, and the way oxes were put in front of the carriage, there was just only one stick, so two oxes had only one stick between them, and this is this stick, and here you see an ox, and this is a wolf, and it is related to a old folk tale that the farmer was ploughing the field, and the wolf came and killed one of the oxes, and then the court asked the wolf to replace the ox ploughing. So this is an ox and this is a wolf, and this is only one stick for them to pull the wagon.
Yes, thank you very much for the talk. I wonder about if you have these discussions about these folk tales and traditional culture with teachers, how did they respond to these own habits? Because I mean, But I've seen, I mean, there are some places at least in Estonia where people still bring sacrifices to stones like this and special places, trees, and they are still often ridiculed for that. So if you had any discussions about this with the teachers, how did the teachers respond? What's their idea?
Yes, how to say it? I was very surprised and very grateful for the backseat I got from teachers. I never in my life have got so many nice and kind words. My husband, for all my life, I've never said so many nice words for me as said those teachers. And I was, by the last lecture, unsure if there is any use of it, but they all said very many thanks. We start to understand the world absolutely differently. So I think there was a point, but the main problem why those people are still radicalized is that this knowledge is not known in Estonian society. It is very new idea, and as I said about me, I had the very first experience to teach that way.
Question over there.
Yeah. Thank you once again for the presentation. I think you made it quite clear that it's talking about wisdom, that culture or traditional culture is or can be some way to encapsulate wisdom of many, many generations and transfer them to the next generation. The trouble is that this kind of knowledge, so to say, this traditional knowledge is often not valued, but it should also, or this your presentation should remind us of other parts of the world where this kind of transportation of knowledge or wisdom to the next generation is the main part. For instance, I have always this quotation in my head that it says that if an old man in Africa in a village dies, it's the same as a big library in our part of the world would burn down completely, because he takes all this knowledge with him that he usually, by songs or also by telling tales to the other, passes to the next generation. And of course there's always somebody like you necessary, and nowadays even more than in the past, to help us understand what really these tales mean, what they stand for. So thanks again, and well, we should always keep in mind that there are other ways of well, passing knowledge down to the next generation.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with you. And this traditional wisdom has transformed a little bit by generations. And I think we have found the point of the traditional wisdom for ourselves, for our community, for our society. I don't know solutions. And I often have said to my students that you have to make choices. If you want to have a sustainable way of living, you need waste more time for some handwork or handcraft. You can't go and get everything without taking pain and wasting your time for that. A sustainable way of living needs work. And if you are motivated, you can no work, and if you have no motivation, you don't do anything.
Thank you very much. Now we still have 10 minutes to lunch. And first of all, I would like to ask whether someone has a comment they want to share with the big group. 4 different presentations where maybe something is still tickling, or some question maybe still there, need to be asked. Not really. Okay.
I don't have any questions, but just some small reflection. I was happy to listen to this about generosity being a way to express relatedness and connectiveness. It's very important for us to understand. he was talking about offering food to Portuguese or so. And also the good, you made it really clear that folklore is not something simple. It's the opposite. It's, I mean, in order to be able to understand metaphors, you have to have a experience, knowledge, and also like senses. So I think it was very nice. It was a very nice presentation. And in a way, we all know that, okay, going back to basics enables us to make complex decisions.
Thank you. And I will now offer you, or suggest you, a small activity for 10 minutes. Because in these huge conferences, you see people, you see faces, but you don't know them really. So now it's the chance. Turn around, take groups of 4 to 6, talk to each other. Tell who you are, tell what you are thinking. You have 10 minutes